Israel claim that Hamas is a terrorist organization. No, it's not. Under the Geneva Convention, if you live under military occupation, you have the right to resist using any means necessary, including armed struggle. Whether you want to throw rocks or fire rockets is irrelevant. Israel is the occupier, and Palestinians, including Hamas, are guerrilla fighters, not terrorists. Israel claim that Hamas fire rockets at civilians indiscriminately. This is not true. Every Israeli, both men and women, must join the Israeli army. They must stay in the Israeli army as reservists until they're 40 years old, sometimes older. So to say that Hamas fire at civilians is not true, because all Israelis have to join the army. You cannot be in the army and a civilian at the same time. Don't forget that Israeli settlers can also carry weapons. Many of them do, and Israel is one of the most highly militarized societies on the planet. The Israeli government happily hand out weapons and film themselves doing it. Israeli settlers murder Palestinians with zero consequences. Meanwhile, the Israeli army are right behind to protect them while they're doing it. And if Hamas fire indiscriminately at civilians, Israel do it intentionally, as the entire world have seen on TV. Israel claim that Hamas attacked them on October 7th, and therefore Hamas started the war. History didn't begin on October 7th. The Hamas operation was a reaction to the Israeli siege of Gaza that's been going on since 2007, and Israel's occupation of Palestine that's been going on for 75 years. Israel claim that Palestinians and Arabs hate Jews. This is nonsense. There are Arab Jews, Arab Christians, and Arab Muslims, and they've always lived peacefully with one another for thousands of years. These religions were born in the same region. Arabs have a problem with Israel, not with Jews. Israel is an occupier, meaning it kicked Arabs out of their homes and took their land. Israel is illegally occupying 3 countries. And if people from Japan had colonized Palestine, then the Palestinians would fight them too. Their religion is irrelevant. Israel claim that people who criticize Israel are Jew haters. This is untrue. There is a big difference between being Jewish and being Israeli. Judaism is a religion. Zionism is a political ideology. Israel is founded on Zionism. There are Jews who stand with Palestinians against Israel. And then there are Zionists, like Joe Biden, who stand with Israel, and they aren't Jewish. Israel claimed that if you criticize Israel, you're being anti-Semitic. This is untrue and dishonest. Israel only say this to silence and attack people who criticize them. They even use this against the United Nations Secretary General. Israel often abused the memory of the Holocaust and abused the term anti-Semitic. Many Israelis are not even Semites themselves. Netanyahu and all the Israeli prime ministers before him originally come from Russia, Ukraine, Poland, or the United States. They're known as Ashkenazi, and they are not Semites just because they speak Hebrew. Remember, Arabs are Semites too. So when Arabs criticize Israel, does that mean they're criticizing themselves? Israel claim that they are the Jewish state. Before Israel was created, there was already a Jewish state in Russia, and it still exists to this day. It's known as the Autonomous Jewish Oblast. So Israel was not created out of necessity because Jews didn't have a country. The Israelis say that 20% of Israelis are Arabs, but those Arabs are not all Jews. So how can this be the Jewish state when a good chunk of the population are not even Jewish? Many Israeli Jews are not religious either and consider themselves to be atheists. Israel claim that Palestine is the promised land given to the Jews. That sounds really wonderful, but God is not a housing agent and the Bible is not a land lease. Also, not everyone believes in the Bible. So this is really just an excuse for somebody from Brooklyn to go and steal land in Palestine. Israel claimed that Palestine was a land without a people for a people without a land. There have been Jews for thousands of years all around the world. Are we to believe that none of them ever owned any land and were never settled? Palestine was not a land without a people. Where did all the Palestinians come from? Did they fall out of the sky? Who is Israel killing now in Gaza and the West Bank? What about other civilizations like the Akkadians or the Phoenicians who were settled in the region long before there were any Jews? Did they just suddenly disappear? Israelis claim that Jews are God's chosen people. Well, God also said, "Thou shalt not kill," but they don't seem too interested in that part. This slogan is a form of supremacy that is used to justify Israel's crimes. The logic is that if we're the chosen ones, we can do anything we like, can't we? Israel claim that they are the only democracy in the Middle East. If Israeli Jews call themselves God's chosen people, then Israel can never be a democracy. You can't have some people who are chosen by God and then others who aren't and claim that everybody is equal. Israel is only really a democracy for white European Jews. Even among Jews, you have a caste system where Arab Jews and Ethiopian Jews are treated unequally. Now, Israel will say that 20% of Israelis are Arabs, but even those Arab Israelis don't have equal rights. And when it comes to Palestinians who live at the mercy of the Israeli occupation, they have no rights at all. In a democracy, journalists are allowed to do their jobs. But Israel killed journalists. Israel have killed more journalists in the last 5 weeks in Gaza than any war has killed in the last 30 years. Israel claimed that Israel has the right to defend itself. Well, countries have the right to defend themselves when they're being attacked on their own land. According to the United Nations and international law, Israel is occupying Gaza. Therefore, it doesn't have the right to defend itself. How can you attack someone and occupy them and then claim you're defending yourself? Self-defense also needs to be proportionate. Israel have killed 11,000 Palestinians and destroyed half of Gaza in just 5 weeks. This is not only disproportionate, but genocide. Israel claimed that they only strike Hamas targets. That's not true. Israel tried to justify bombing all the people in Gaza by saying that everybody is Hamas. Israel have bombed hospitals, churches, mosques, residential buildings. The United Nations, the Red Cross and Amnesty International have all confirmed that Israel is violating international law. Israel have killed 88 UN workers. That's more than any war in history. Israel cut off water, food, electricity and fuel to everybody in the Gaza Strip. That hurts the entire population, not just Hamas. This is called collective punishment and it's a war crime. Remember, half the population in Gaza are children. Israel claimed they provided a safe evacuation route for people in Gaza. But people in Gaza are fleeing because of Israel in the first place. They're walking with their hands up. They're waving white flags because they're so afraid of being shot at by the Israelis. So this is not an evacuation, it's a forced march. It's ethnic cleansing similar to that of the Nakba in 1948. Israel even bombed the Salah ad-Din route on several occasions, killing the same people that obeyed its evacuation order. Palestinians are human animals. That's a quote from the Israeli defense minister, who is giving the okay to his soldiers to go and commit genocide. One of Netanyahu's ministers also proposed dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza. This phrase, human animals, comes from the Israelis' belief in the Talmud, where they're told that anyone who isn't a Jew is a human animal and should therefore be killed. This is very different from the teachings of the Torah that say, "Thou shalt not kill." The Torah, or the Old Testament, this is the traditional Bible that's followed by most Jews, and Jews who back the Palestinians. Israel claimed that everything is the Palestinians' fault for not accepting a two-state solution. But the Palestinians did accept a two-state solution. They already accepted it when they signed the Oslo Accords 30 years ago. Israel was supposed to help Palestinians create a Palestinian state within 5 years, but they never did this. Instead, Israel have taken more and more Palestinian land and built more and more illegal settlements. Israelis claim that the Palestinians don't want diplomacy. That's not true. When the Arab League put forward the Arab Peace Initiative in the early 2000s, it's the Israelis that walked away from it. Hamas wrote to George Bush in 2006 and said they'd be willing to compromise with Israel if the lines went back to 1967 borders, but the White House never wrote back. Shlomo Ben-Ami, the former Israeli foreign minister, when he was talking about the Israelis' offer at Camp David in 2000, he said that if, quote, "if I were a Palestinian, I would have rejected Camp David as well." Israelis claim that Palestine was never a country. This is untrue and historically inaccurate. Several Israeli prime ministers were born in Palestine. It says so on their passports and birth certificates. And if Palestine were called China, who cares? There's still people living there. It doesn't give anyone the right to go kill them and take their land. Also, the concept of a country or a nation state is a very modern concept that just came out of Europe. There were no countries in the modern sense until very recently. Israel claimed that Hamas used Palestinians as human shields. This is a lie. According to Israel, if you refuse to leave your own house and Israel kill you, you're a human shield for Hamas. That's nonsense. People don't stay in their homes because they care about Hamas. They stay in their homes because they're hiding from Israeli bombs. Palestinians know that if they leave their homes, Israel is going to take their land and turn them into refugees a second time. Remember, most people in Gaza already lost their homes to Israel in the past, and they don't want to go through that again. Palestinians everywhere will tell you the same thing, that they're not going to leave their homes, including those in the West Bank, where there is no Hamas. If anyone fits the bill of using human shields, it's the Israelis, who put military bases inside the kibbutz, the settlement. And remember, every Israeli has to serve in the military, but then they turn around and say that they're civilians at the same time? Talk about human shields. Israelis claim that the Gaza Health Ministry is run by Hamas. Yes, well done. The government in Gaza are Hamas. What's that supposed to prove? Are the Israelis trying to imply that the Palestinian death toll is somehow exaggerated? The United Nations and all the NGOs operating in Gaza have always relied on figures provided by the Gaza Health Ministry, and they've been correct in every war. Killing Palestinians is wrong, period. Regardless what the death toll is. I mean, are the Israelis saying that if they had killed 2,000 Palestinians instead of 11,000 Palestinians, that this would somehow be okay? The UN chief called Gaza a graveyard for children. That speaks for itself.